stuff at the top. Layer, line type, whether it is annotative. And then I come into these different tabs like lines and arrows, text, fit, primary units, alternate units, tolerancing. In essence, you've got almost every variable that's in your dim styles available to you here, and you can change any of them. Now, the thing you want to remember is that the change you make here only applies to the one dimension you are editing. It's not going to apply to the drawing as a whole. So it's two advantages of doing this. One, you have that individual selectivity on each individual one. Second, you're not using dim overrides, which then you have to get rid of, right, when you use those before the fact. I think there's one other advantage to it. Many times we don't really know how the dimension is going to perform until we place it. Like, is it too narrow for me to get my arrows and text in there? Do I need to pull my arrows out? Do I need to pull my text out? Do I got arrows going into another dimension? Do I need to break some extension lines? Things of that nature. So a lot of times we'll just go ahead and real quickly run through and dimension an object and then just start editing it after the fact. Many times that's the fastest way to get things done and the most accurate way to get things done. One other caveat to dimensioning. If your drawing's not drawn at 1:1, give it up. Or get very good with a calculator, because you are going to have a lot of proportions you need to figure out. Okay? And this is that big advantage that goes right back to viewports and being able to use viewports to scale geometry, not the scale command. That's why we always say, right at the very first day of 131 or 2, I think I made it a point of going around the room and saying, what are you going to draw at? And it was 1:1. What am I going to draw everything at? 1:1. This is why. Okay, right here. It will make your life easy if you've done that. Okay. Now, some of the things you're going to want to kind of pay attention to. And I pulled up one of your drawings right here just as an example. Okay? Because you're going to get into a lot of situations that look a lot like this, where I've got small dimensions and things. How do I go ahead and take care of items like this area right here? Let me throw that to white real quick so you can see it a little better. Okay. So remember, when dimensions get small, first thing we pull out is arrows, right? Then we pull out text. Now, you got a thing to say, you know, do I keep this one right here, or how do I run the arrows with it? Well, you're going to be suppressing stuff. That's the first thing I would tell you, is when you get in these dimensions and you select them, know where you have 4 variables, because you'll be using these time and time again. Okay, so I'm just going to select a dimension here, like this one. Now, the 4 I'm talking about are right here on your lines and arrows tab. Okay? So if you would pull up your properties dialog box, if you don't have a dimension on your screen, throw one out and let's make sure you can find these 4. Okay, put a dimension, get it selected, have your properties dialog box up. Under the lines and arrows tab.
Wait, it's just the regular properties box?
Yes. And you can get that by typing CH. If you don't have it up as I would suggest you keep this dialog box, the one my cursor is going over right here. I'd really suggest with the dual screen monitor that this is always up. But in essence, just type CH. It's also under your view ribbon. Now on your lines and arrows tab, look for 2 that say dimension line 1, dimension line 2. Those have to do with your dimension lines. Now remember where you click them, so if I clicked here, the first point, that would be 1, the other one would be 2. If I clicked on the top first, that would be 1, this would be 2. Doesn't really matter. I don't think you need to track that. You just come in here. If you're going to suppress one and the wrong one turns off, turn it back on and use the other one. So in essence, what you're doing with these is you're coming in and then just selected them. By default, you'd look like they don't have anything, but if you click in there, you get a drop-down box, and it's really got just an on-off. So this is your dim SD1 and dim SD2 variables. And turn them on or off and see what it does.
Well, that's quicker than going back into the layers and doing it, clicking up, dim extent one.
It is, it's much quicker.
Ah.
And in essence, many times we don't even know we need to do it until we place the dimension, right? And we see it visually in front of us.
Yeah, now click more back.
Those are two I use every single time I'm dimensioning. Now, the other two to look on are on the same panel. So you're still in lines and arrows. And go down and you see extension line 1 and extension line 2. That has to do with these things. See? Now, there's a variety of times I'm suppressing these. I suppress them many times when, like the example I did the other day, when I'm doing baseline dimensioning and I got a whole bunch of them stacked on top of each other. Then I'll suppress all of them except for the last one. The other time I'm doing it is when I'm suppressing from a center line. Many times when we're locating the center of a hole, what in essence do? We take our center line marks and we turn them into an extension line. So you can do this either one of two ways. The author walks you through this also. But remember, you do have a 16th off of your front point. So where do you click on your extension line? If you click when you're locating a hole on the edge of this tick mark right here, since you have a 16th offset where an extension line starts and you also have a 16th here, this would be the place to click. Then you have no editing to do on it at all. Now the other thing you might want to do is say, you know what, I need this to be a center line. I can actually change this line type, my extension line type also, through the same thing. And it is right here, right? Right now it's set for by block. I can set that to center 2, or I can suppress it entirely and use this line. Not this one, let me just kind of show you the other way. I can also come in, and I usually set this up. Okay. So I'm going to come to here. I would place the dimension. I'm going to give myself a little snap point right here. Okay. Now the other way I can deal with that is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to suppress my extension line. I think that's 2, actually. I know it is because I just dealt with the dimension. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay. Then I'm going to grab this center line and pull it all the way out. Give yourself a little snap point. Okay, that then sets that up. Now this is just a line. Okay, it might be part of the center mark command, and you also have those abilities there. Now here, I can then come up and say, you know, what do I want for a line type on this guy? I'll click up in here and tell it, hey, I want you to go to center 2 and use that. You can also do that with an extension line. Either way. Okay, so whatever way you think is faster or gives you a better result.
Is that preferred to have to show that it's a
Not in the mechanical world, it's not. In many other worlds, it is. Okay. And as we get to the other disciplines, you'll see me use this, specifically architectural civil. But I'm just saying you have this ability to do that.
When you did it on the dialog box, you used extension line 1 line type.
You can? Yes.
I just couldn't see what you pointed to.
Yeah, you got several options on that. So I'm using the center line here, but let me go ahead and just undo that. Okay, I'll get rid of it. I can do it with the extension line also. Right now I have my extension line suppressed, so I'm going to come in and turn that back on. And I've got it snapped to the correct spot. Now while I've got that, I've also got, notice there's an extension line types right here that are also with it, which are the dim EXL type, I believe is the variable on those. And I would just come in and tell it, hey, I want you to go center 2. That again does the same thing, except
So the line.
I got to get rid of that center line right here because it's washing out my breaks. It's got 2 lines on top of itself. Okay. So I could then come in and take that off, whatever the case. But you're gonna have a little editing on it one way or the other. So the point being, many times, use QDIM to get you started, and then place all your dimensions regardless of how they do, and follow that same guideline we used before. Look at each individual feature, height, width, depth. Then go contour dimensioning, then do associative dimensioning, then do grouping, and now we're gonna go back through and then match everything up and change the dimensions accordingly. You have some grips that are also available with these. And these work many times when you get these small dimensions. That's what you want to use, like this one. Okay. Notice the grips that you have when you select a dimension. You got these two that control your extension lines. Okay, so if you need to change it to a different feature, just grab your grip and move it. You have these which control your in and out. You have this one that controls your text. Okay, so on one like this, if I didn't have this 10, I might say, you know what? I really don't think I have enough room here. Somebody can't see this little piece right here. So how would I edit this to go with the 10 and get it to work? Well, I'm going to do a couple things to it. Number one, I'm going to come in and take the dimension 2, which is this guy, I believe, probably on this one. That's not the one, it's 1. So I'm going to turn that back on. Let me turn 1 off. Okay, I'm going to turn that one off. Then I'm going to get down on this grip. We do have some new things, flip an arrowhead. Now the problem with that one, it leaves this guy right here. So how am I going to deal with that? Well, I'm going to take my text and go ahead and pull it out. Now one thing with your text when you got this one, if you get on this grip, the one you're probably going to use almost always is the move with leader, okay, option. Okay, and this is all part of the dim T-move variable. Okay. Right now we've just got it set as leave it alone in the dim style. Okay. So I'll just grab that guy, say, hey, I'm going to move you with a leader, and I'll go ahead and pull it down here. And I do want to flip that arrowhead back. And how do I get that to go? So anyway, point being, just kind of make these and go ahead and edit them as you need them. Now I got to get it in here to where it sees it again. Well, I'll have to get it here in a minute. There's a lot of options you can get with. Yes?
What's the difference between graphical snaps and definition points? I was kind of confused why what's a definition point? Is it the same thing as a snap where you're moving?
No, def points is something AutoCAD is storing on the point, because if you look at like these extension lines, there's a node right here, right, that we don't see it. That's stored on the def points layer.
Do you do that for anything?
No, and it won't plot. Because once you get these, keep in mind, look at the layer setup on them. Okay. You might want to do this, is pull up your layer properties dialog box. And if you'll notice on the def points, it's got the printer grayed out. In fact, you can't plot this, I don't think. I haven't looked at it in a few versions. You can't delete this one either. It's just there.
Where is it? Where are you saying?
Def points, you in your layers properties
that's where
dialog
that
box.
came from. Okay.
Do you see the def points?
So we don't, okay.
AutoCAD's using it to store that point information for your extension lines, okay, but you don't need
We
it.
don't edit that, don't we?
No, and it won't print, so anything that's on that layer you will not print. So you have grips and you got the properties dialog box. Now, not everybody was in class the other day when we were talking about some of the text things you can do and stuff like that. So what if I've got a leader line and I need to edit the text? Now, if you're using dim diameter, it's reading a value, right? So keep in mind, whenever you come into a dimension, I'm going to double click this. There's two ways to edit the text. One, if you double click on the text itself, since your dimension uses mText, it opens MTEdit, and you can edit it right there. This is what probably the preferred way of doing it. Now, once I come in, I've got it, it's reading the dimension, and those of you that were here the other day, you remember that keystroke is this, right? Less than, greater than, and that reads the Cartesian grid. So you want to remember these two, because if I've got this a not to scale or something like that, and I go ahead and delete that, and I say, you know what, I want this to be 250, and I type it in, okay, it's going to read 250. And it's going to read 250 forever, even if I move my extension lines. It doesn't change. Right? So in fact, let me just go ahead and change that real quick. So you can see that. I'm grabbing that, I'm going to pull it out. Notice it's still 250. Well, if I wanted to read, which most of them will because you drew 1 to 1, and you need to get that, the way you do it is put less than, greater than. Right? And it will read the grid on the screen. Now there is another way to edit text, and it is through the Properties dialog box, and you'll end up using this one quite a bit. It's under your text option. So here I've selected the dimension. Let me get rid of all these panels except for the text one. On the Properties dialog box, look at the very bottom. There's a text override option right here. Here you can type in any value you want. Click on a dimension. It's on your Properties dialog box under the text pane. And again, I can come down in. Now this is going to override everything that's going on here. So to give you, I don't know that this is really appropriate, but here's what I might do here. Let's say I was going dual dimensioning. I would do less than, greater than. And then I'm going to do a comma, space, bracket, 2.5, since this is metric, and then go bracket again. Okay. So in essence, I'd be doing dual dimensioning here. So the less than, greater than I put in here. You can't see that. Let me go ahead and write my keystrokes up there. So what I did is I put this, and then I had a comma, then bracket, 2.50, bracket. Okay. Now, what's this going to return on my drawing as far as text?
It's going to associate the second dimension.
What are these two going to do?
Associate Cartesian.
It's going to read whatever's on the drawing that's extended, the extension lines extend. Then I'm going to have a comma, and I'm going to have an English unit of measure. If I needed to get a diameter sign in here, then I would be putting something like %C. But again, you can type whatever you want in here, and then that will override what's going on with the screen. You can do it through mText or this. This one's kind of nice many times because I'll change all of like dimensions and I can cut and paste, right? Control C, Control V. I can do it generally a little quicker through here. So as soon as I hit enter, we should see those changes take place. You could put the depth symbol in there, you can put whatever you want.
Okay, I have a question on that. We were trying to take it from our table. It wasn't annotated, so the size of our symbols wasn't coming in.
Okay.
We made them ourselves.
I need to leave this up here, don't I?
Nope, we have it. Where's
We
it?
got that? When you're doing your symbols, some fonts have the symbols in them, some don't. Your simplex font does not have counterbore, countersink, depth, all these, although countersink is just capital V. That will work for that. But if you're doing counterbores, and I know some of you also have this information, back in chapter 10, make this, you gotta draw it. Okay, so your counter bore is an 1/8 inch by an 1/8 inch. When you're doing your depth symbol, and by the way, once you make one, W block it out to your library. Yeah, right block, remember that from chapter 24? If you make a block in a drawing, you can write it to a different directory. When you're doing the depth symbol, let me give you those dimensions. Okay, so you want an 1/8 inch by an 1/8 inch. This is a 1/16, the height, and this angle right here is 60 degrees. Now, if you're using Simplex, you don't have these. The author points you towards GET font that has these symbols in them, but they're, again, not really right either in the font. So generally, we draw these as a block, and then we insert them. Now, where do you put them in the drawing? When you're doing your M text, now let me just grab one, like this guy. Let me just kind of show you. Now, I selected this. Notice that when I selected it, all my text is selected because this is an M leader. This was not selected, this was not selected, because it's not part of the text. These are just drawings. Whenever you need these symbols, if you leave 2 spaces, you'll have room for the symbol. So as I type this thing up, I'll jump into M text here. Okay, so as I type this thing up, 2 by %% M33 by 2, and then I cycle to the next line, and you can't use text override on 2 lines. I didn't have to leave anything here, but then I did diameter 52, comma, and then I just hit 2 spaces where I know I'm going to put a symbol. Okay, so then there's a space, 12, I'm done, and then I take these symbols that are right here, okay, these are just separate. And then I just place them as I want. So I'll just take this and move it, and again, you want to kind of look at your up and down, make sure it's good and set up.
Now, is that acceptable to comma that instead of stack them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Talking about the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I cycled the 2 lines only for 2 reasons. One, I'm done with the information on what I'm talking about, or I ran out of room.
Okay.
But yeah, my main threaded hole is done here, and then I go to my counter board, and everything's described there.
Can you show us one thing? Can you go into your text and pull it from a block in there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can. So, do what now? Explain that again.
I mean, how do you pull it on a block once you're in there, when you're editing it? As you write it, can you stop and go grab a block and put it in and then continue typing?
No, you'd have to terminate the command because you're using the
Same thing, you
insert.
still have to space it and then go with the block again.
Yeah, okay, so if I made a block of this, and I'm not sure if this is, this is not the computer I built this on. Let's go ahead and I'll show you
Describe
the
it.
process because
Describe
you would have to do it. So I'm going to move this, or let's copy this back up. So I took the time to make one of these things. Okay. Now remember, when you do a block, generally you want it on which layer? If you're going to reuse it in a bunch of drawings.
0.
Make it on the 0 layer. Okay. So I'm going to take all this geometry, I'm going to draw it 1 to 1, and I'm going to put it on the 0 layer. Okay, then I'm going to use my make block. So I'll just call this my depth and base point, probably the bottom of the arrowhead. The objects are going to be all of this. Okay, so I made it as a block now. This is a block, right? Then I'm going to use my W block command to throw it in my library. Okay, so this is WBLK, I think. WBL comes up. Because remember, blocks are stored in drawings. They're not AutoCAD settings. Okay, so then I'll choose block. All my blocks will be listed. There's my depth one. Make sure down here under destination that you know where you're saving this thing. So I'll come out And I'm gonna be in my C drive, that, we don't have one, let me make one. Call this library. So I'm gonna store it right here. Now, as soon as I click OK, if you look on the top of my drawing, right about up in here, you're gonna see real quickly that thing pop up. What it's gonna do is actually take this and just make a drawing with only that in it and store it at that location. Okay. So then I say OK. Can you see it real quick? So now that block's there. Now if I want it in any other drawing, okay, let me just come back here and I'll just open any drawing. Now I need that depth symbol. Use your insert block. Okay, and again, it's under insert ribbon, but I just use I as insert. Okay. This is all chapter 24 stuff, which was blocks. Hit the browse button, go find my library, see that, library. There's my depth symbol, okay, okay. Place it in my drawing, there it is.
I think I have to review chapter 24. That's chapter 24.
Yes,
You couldn't go to the AutoCAD Design Center and just drop it in?
I can do that from the Design Center too. The Design Center is specifically built for moving blocks and stuff around or reaching into other drawings and grabbing stuff. You bet I could.
Sweet.
If Design Center's not allowing you to copy and pull into a different drawing, what's going on?
Make
Use
sure
every
all
row.
your layers, make sure all your layers are turned on. First of all, Majed did that, and that was his mistake. All his layers weren't turned on.
Yeah. Keep
Or
in
whatever
mind-
layer you made it under, it's already in that drawing.